Tonight, you're going to open your laptop and add another tool to your stack, a new app, a new dashboard, a new system promising to finally organize your life. You'll feel a small hit of relief the moment you install it. But here's the strange part. The more tools you add, the slower you actually become, and almost nobody notices this happening in real time. This is the productivity paradox. It sounds like a contradiction. It isn't. It's a pattern hiding in plain sight, inside your browser tabs, your notification badges, your color-coded task boards. You built a system to think less about your work. Instead, you built a second job just to maintain the system. Sound familiar? Let's go back to where this idea actually starts, not with an app, with attention itself. Your brain was never built to run 12 open loops at once. Psychologist Sophie Leroy studied what happens when you switch from one unfinished task to another. She called it attention residue. A piece of your mind stays behind on the old task, even after you've moved to the new one. You think you switched, you didn't. Part of you is still back there, unfinished, quietly draining focus from whatever you're doing now. Now stack 10 tools on top of that. Every dashboard is its own unfinished task. Every app is another tab your brain refuses to fully close. You don't feel busy because you're doing more. You feel busy because you're leaving pieces of yourself scattered across every system you touch. Here's where it gets stranger. The tools were supposed to fix this. Newport, the computer scientist who popularized the idea of deep work, has spent years arguing that most productivity software doesn't reduce cognitive load, it relocates it. You stop forgetting things because you wrote them down somewhere. But now you have to remember where you wrote them down. You've traded memory for maintenance. That's not less work. That's a different kind of work, dressed up to look like progress. Why does it feel like progress, though? Why does installing a new system feel so good, even when it makes things worse? Because your brain rewards the setup, not the outcome. Organizing a task list feels like doing the task. Building a system feels like solving the problem. Neuroscience has a name for this. It's a mismatch between effort and completion. Your brain releases a small reward for the feeling of control. It doesn't check whether that control is real. It just checks whether it feels real. And a clean new dashboard feels very, very real. This is how the paradox multiplies. You feel behind. You add a tool. The tool gives you a temporary hit of order. Underneath, your actual output hasn't moved. So a few weeks later, you feel behind again. And what do? You add another tool. Gloria Mark, who has spent over a decade researching attention in digital environments, found that the average person shifts their focus roughly every 3 minutes when working on a screen. 3 minutes. Now picture that same person managing 5 separate productivity systems, each with its own notifications, its own login, its own mental model of how work is supposed to flow. The tools aren't reducing the switching, they're multiplying it. Every system you add is one more place your attention has to reset. You were promised a workflow. What you built is a maze. So what's actually happening underneath all of this? It isn't a tooling problem, it's a translation problem. Every app requires you to translate your actual intention into its specific structure. A task becomes a card becomes a tag becomes a priority level inside a system that has its own logic, separate from how your brain naturally organizes ideas. Each translation costs you something, not time exactly. Coherence. Your thinking gets chopped into whatever shape the software demands, instead of the software adapting to the shape of your thinking. Multiply that across 10 tools and you're not managing your work anymore. You're managing 10 different translations of your work, and none of them agree with each other. Here's the twist most people miss entirely. The systems that seem to make people most productive, the ones you see praised online, aren't complex. They're deliberately narrow. Newport's own research into deep work points to something almost embarrassingly simple. Fewer inputs, longer blocks of undivided attention, and a near total rejection of systems that require daily maintenance. Not because simplicity is trendy, because every additional system is another translation tax on your attention, and the highest performers instinctively refuse to pay it more than once. This changes what the real question should be, not what's the best productivity app. The real question is, how many translations am I asking my brain to perform before I actually start the work? Think about your own stack right now. A notes app, a task manager, a calendar, a messaging platform, maybe an AI assistant layered.